Oh my gosh, look at this guy. He looks like a pro.
Yeah.
Is this your hobby outside of running small businesses?
I work from home and have since the apocalypse. And when the apocalypse hit, I temporarily took over my wife's office in the house, the big house. I'm in a little house. So the I've been kicked out of the big house. So I'm out in the shop. This is my little wood shop. And I love it out here. It is a hobby I have picked up. I spend way too much money on the tools, and I love being out here. I have a client who, he moved his office from downtown Memphis out to the airport in the suburbs, the little regional airport, because that's where there's a bunch of like industry and stuff. And actually, Memphis has some like headquarters of some like car motor companies and stuff, like Edelbrock, like make car stuff. It's awesome. Anyway, he's a race car driver, and one of his other businesses is he I guess leases race cars. I don't know, but like turns out a lot of race car drivers don't own their own shit and take care of it. They just
okay,
like a retainer, and he has a race car shop. And anyway, he put in this normal corporate SaaS looking office inside of his shop and works on race cars and gets to look out of his window at his race cars all day. And I said, hell, I ought to do that. My favorite place is my backyard in my wood shop. And I'm a little redneck. I'm from Louisiana. I live in Memphis now, but I grew up in a small town with a population of 2,000. If you count the surrounding area, it's 5,000. It's nowhere near anything except where the people from Duck Dynasty are from. Anyway, it's called Farmerville. And so I'll put this in my backyard in the fancy suburbs of Memphis. And I call it my little slice of Farmerville. I got my labs running around in the backyard. I got my wood shop. So here's the tour, just real quick. So
yeah, let's
you come
do it.
in the door. Yeah, you come in the door. I got place for my kids to put all their art. That's one of my favorite things because the house is too fancy for that. So we got something from everybody up here. And this is my toolbox with all my glues and stuff for my woodworking. And all my finishes and stuff. But I got my drill press and everything here. Dust collector.
That's cool. So, do you have anything you've made around? I want to see final product here.
Well, the cabinet box I just hung. I made it yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, actually I do. I have something I restored. Let me grab it. It's a chair. I restored this chair recently. Nice ironwork. But when I got it, it was broken in 3 places. The wood was all gray and weathered. And so I completely refinished it and greased it up and oiled it up and sanded it. And anyway, it's a nice little, real comfortable chair.
That's awesome. So for the audience listening at home who can't see JD today, we will have this on video on YouTube. But if you're listening, he's showing us around his woodshed. Obviously, you've come to the Retain Trust podcast, which is for agency owners, and hence why we're at a woodshed. No, I'm just kidding. JD, thanks for coming on, and I'm excited to actually dig into it with you. Let's just jump right in. You own a few businesses, some in services and in marketing, some in SaaS. Give me the rundown. What are you working on these days?
Going back to 2009, that's when I started my first business, Simple Focus. Simple Focus started as JD Moonlighting, which actually started like 2005. But when I quit my job and made it official, it was 2009. And it was August the 3rd. And it was the day that my dad came home from the hospital after recovering from open heart surgery. So it was kind of a big day. But the timing was such that that was when I quit my job, and I drove down and spent the weekend with my dad. And on Monday morning, August 3rd, 2009, I drove up to Jackson, Mississippi on my way back to Memphis. They're down in Hattiesburg. Stopped off in Jackson for a meeting with eHealth Studios. I was doing a little branding project and a website project for a good friend there and a longtime customer, Bob Chrysler. And that was my first work meeting, was a lunch meeting in Jackson, Mississippi. Then I drove on home, and, the rest is history with Simple Focus. Simple Focus started out doing the internet, websites, and specifically focused on, what we called functional database-driven applications at the time. We didn't have a word for it. Like, SaaS wasn't really in the vernacular at the time. Digital product wasn't really in the vernacular so much at the time. It was just, maybe web applications, but customers didn't know what that meant. But this was 2009. And around 2012, still a little bit before those words that we use today to describe it came about, Simple Focus had kind of made a name for itself as experts in usability. And the word UX was coming on the scene, but it was really usability is what we called it then. And I was speaking and traveling, and I had written a book called CSS for Print Designers. This was when agencies still hired web devs to code their designs. And this was about the time that everybody started realizing that traditional agencies that worked in print sucked at web, and they needed to figure that out. And I was part of the reason the agencies in Memphis figured it out, I think, because I trained a lot of them on it. A lot of the individuals as much as the agency. So that was cool. But anyway, 2012 comes along, and some buddies of mine that had an agency and had moved on from their agency had also built a product called Pulse, 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 pulseapp.com. And Pulse is this thing they built to sort of promote their agency. They wanted to prove that they didn't have to code designs from agencies for ad agencies anymore. And they wanted to prove they could build a product. And they wanted to put their name out there as a company, happens to be in Memphis, that could build products. And they got on the radar. They really did. They took on some really cool work. They did stuff for Kissmetrics and a few other cool product companies at the time. But eventually they moved on from their agency, and they were ready to kind of figure out what to do with Pulse, this thing that they had built to sort of promote themselves. Because what they did was they built it in a month, and they blogged about it, and it got on the front page of Dig, and 37 Signals retweeted it, and it was a big deal. And so everybody in the agency world had heard of them because they were like, ooh, we want to do products. Clients suck, all that kind of shit. This was when Clients from Hell was a big website. Everybody in the agency world wanted to get out of the agency world and build a product. We still weren't calling it SaaS. And anyway, I was able to buy Pulse from my friends because they're in Memphis and I know them, and they couldn't sell it to anybody else because it was too little for anybody that had money and too big for anybody that didn't have money. And I was like, just right. Is it Goldilocks? What is it? Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good analogy.
So anyway, bought Pulse. That went really well. These guys had been not really taking care of it. And it was still surviving on its own, staying flat somehow. And I gave it a little bit of TLC and grew the business significantly by running it in the spare cycles of Simple Focus. So I bought Pulse, and the next thing I know, I looked up and I saw that Ballpark from which had been built by Andrew Wilkinson and MetaLab, Ballpark was for sale. So I reached out to Andrew over Twitter and I said, yo, hey, I have an app that's kind of like Ballpark. It's Pulse. It does cash flow. I see that Ballpark has a cash flow feature. Be interested to buy it maybe because I've done this before. And I have an agency like MetaLab that focuses on product design. How cool is that? This is around 2014 or so. And, well, Andrew kind of blew up, did really well in business. Everybody knows who he is on Twitter. And he wrote a blog post announcing that he had sold Ballpark to Simple Focus and said, we're like a little MetaLab, which was really cool, because we kind of are. We really are. We're
Sure.
We call ourselves Experience Design and their product, but it's the same fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
So Ballpark has been a great experience invoicing time tracking for freelancers, like $19 a month. It's not free, and it's not QuickBooks, and it's not Harvest. So, if you're over any of those things, it's a good product. Great for time tracking and sending invoices and estimates, and just really slick experience. Good app. But here's the thing, Karl, here's what happened is when Andrew wrote the blog post that said the nice things about us, everybody was like, yo, JD, so you're buying a portfolio of software companies, huh? And I was like, I guess. Sure, I'm operating multiple SaaS products and running an agency. No, I didn't build the SaaS products. I bought them. You bought them? What? I was like, yeah, but they're tiny. It's not like I'm, sort of rich mogul buying companies. They didn't have employees. It was like, it was just GitHub repo, But since we're an agency, we know how to take over a GitHub repo, and we know how to manage multiple things at a time. And guess what a SaaS portfolio is? It's like having a couple of clients, right? But anyway, that put me on the radar of a lot of people, and they're like, oh, you should buy my app. And so I ended up buying Sifter from Garrett Diamond, which is a fantastic bug and issue tracker. Still is to this day. If you're looking for proper Kanban, not Trello boards, proper Kanban. That's what it does. And fantastic little app. That was done really well. And David Hauser, who sold Grasshopper, the voice over IP phone system, was looking to get rid of some smaller assets, apps that he had. And I bought Temper and Pop Survey. Have since sold both of those, but I bought those from him. And that was still back in 2015. So all told, I've bought and sold like 25 different businesses. Today,
Wow.
operating 8 of them. And I think of it as 4 teams. Okay. So I have a collection of apps that I still operate. One is doing really well. It's in the e-commerce subscription space. So like merchants that are selling subscriptions to like toilet paper or supplements or coffee or whatever, right? We help them do upsells in the best, most performant place ever. And so when they, install ARPU, it kind of prints money for them, which is cool. I lucked upon that app. That was just a wow. But there's ARPU in a portfolio of apps. That's what I call the software team. Then I've got Simple Focus, the agency, and I've got Audience Ops, which is content marketing. You know a thing or two about that. Business writing, not dev focused, right? Technical, but not dev focused. We're not devs, we're business writers. And that's how you and I met. And then I have this tiny little brand agency that I'm starting up with a young guy who's really talented here in Memphis. We met over coffee a few times, and I'm kind of mentoring him and helping him get a brand development agency off the ground. I've been in staffing, like I started and sold a staffing agency. I've bought a couple of other agencies and merged them into Simple Focus over the years. A couple of local agencies, from our market here in Memphis, and just kind of doing my thing. Wake up every morning and figure out what I'm going to work on that day. But yeah, that's the overview. Sorry it's so long, and I use so many words, but whatever, it's a podcast. What do they expect, Karl?
Yeah, what else are people here for except to listen to your words, JD? That's the whole point. You gave me a ton of questions to ask you too. So thank you for the big kickoff point, because this is all great. Okay, you're in a really unique position to buy SaaS companies that are too small for others to buy because you have this dev team that knows how to actually run them, right? I think one of the challenges to selling those small SaaS companies is like you've got to actually get your sleeves rolled up and start doing dev work because they're too small to have a whole engineering team supported by them, right?
Or even sometimes one engineer.
Right. So I'm curious about that. Like, does that opportunity still exist? Do you still see that? Or do you think that has changed a bit?
It's so different now out there. I can't find anything that makes sense for me in the small acquisition market. Like if I'm going to buy something right now, it's got to be a gem.
Yeah. Why is that? Let's talk about that more. Yeah.
My return on equity with my acquisitions was like 45 to 60%. That's fucking fast, right? Like that, you get your money back quick. Okay, drop down to 40, then 30, right? But much below 30, and it's not worth doing if it takes 3 years to get my money back. So that's the reason is, there's a lot more competition in the market. The first thing I did wrong was went on a bunch of podcasts and told everybody what to do it. Then a bunch of people with a lot more money than me started doing it and flooding the market. And now there's just a market to sell small apps. I mean, you could sell these things. And the multiples are just kind of creeping up and not like people are having these outsized exits or anything, but I bought something for 1.5x in the beginning, and now 2.5x is a good purchase price.
And that's revenue, right?
Yeah, it depends on the margins. I mean, I've been buying businesses that operate between 80 and 95% margin because there's no overhead, right? And the way we do our dev allocations is that I've got a small team of devs, and if they don't spend any time fixing bugs or adding features to a product in a given month, then there's no dev cost, and they're just splitting their time between where the best opportunity is for return. So we're building features that we can monetize and, keeping the lights on for the others and trying to mitigate churn. But yeah, I think things are a little bit more expensive now, but okay, fine. They're more expensive. Are they worth it? That's the problem, is they're not. There's a bunch of, when I was actively buying SaaS, the thing I was looking for was something that had been around and had a brand, right? Sifter, Ballpark, Pulse, these were all recognized brands. Had zero customer acquisition cost, right? Weren't relying on a marketplace or anything like that. It was just, churn was probably average, not even really low. And they're still able to maintain, flat for a couple of years minimum, right? If they got to that point where their growth looked like this and then it flattened off and it held for 2 years or 3 years, I was zeroing in on it. That was it was literally the shape of that curve was what I bought on. Then I started venturing out and I bought an Amazon app and lost a bunch of money. Whew. Don't buy Amazon apps. Those suck. Amazon will put you out of business. They're eventually going to do it. Don't even try. Shopify has been a great marketplace to be in. I'm not hedged with this app that's doing it so well right now, but we've carved out a little piece of turf, and the Hawks have moved on from it. They feel like they've, done good enough competing with us, and they've moved on, the big guys. But they don't intend on putting us out of business, and we're still, our feature set is better than the platforms. So Shopify's and Recharge's features are, competing with us now, but we're still the premium service, right? And they're not going to try and copy us and put us out of business or take us off their marketplace anymore. So that's good. Those marketplaces you got to be aware of. But I mean, the stuff that's for sale now has been was founded 18 months ago. I'm not buying that shit. That's too risky. I'm not buying anything that's AI because, if I'm going to buy AI, I'm going to let my retirement manager do it through Raymond James, or whoever, So yeah, there's just not really good finds on the market. So I'm just kind of sitting back and watching.
It sounds like your approach has been, and this is my approach too when we've done acquisitions, is like the business needs to be generating the cash flow to pay for itself within whatever I think my reasonable payback period is, and again, you can make that, I think your point about 3 years was the payback period you were shooting for. And then it's, as those multiples go up, that gets longer, gets harder to justify because then you're taking more and more risk that this thing, again, with these small apps, like platform risk is a real thing. Technology changes, keeping the thing up to parity with the competitors, it's all at risk. Like, yeah, like where do you see opportunities today though? I mean, you're still out here running things. Like, do you want to just maintain and hold what you got, or do you see other interesting opportunities in the acquisition space that you still want to go for? And if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay too.
So first of all, I'm really lucky to be in this position. I'm happy. I don't spend my life stressed out about work, and there's enough money, right? Would I like to make more? Sure, why not? But richer than I ever thought I'd be when I was a little redneck boy in Farmerville, so I'm happy. I got all my tools, you can't buy better tools. I'm happy. I got every single type of nail gun you could ever want, right? Like, no, there's no other type of nail gun I would want.
JD's definition of happiness, having every nail gun he wants.
Hell yeah.
I like that.
It's whatever you're into,
Right,
but
right.
I realize I'm very
you.
lucky to be able to have every kind of nail gun. So I'm not trying to screw that up. I don't want to screw that up. I've made mistakes in business. I've been scared, but I'm in a good spot. And where I'm focusing my energy right now is on what got me here. Simple Focus. Simple Focus was my original love. It's the mothership of all of this. And since there's just a bunch of junk on the market that I'm not interested in buying right now, I'm not going to buy it. And I'm just going to do what I was doing before, which also made me happy. And that is getting to know people, talking to customers, improving user experiences, and being strategic with clients and working with people that I've worked with for 15 years. It's kind of great. I'm lucky. So the fun thing is with Simple Focus, I'm kind of repositioning our brand and sharpening and honing, identifying, who our ideal customer persona is. What does the ideal client look like? That's been fun. What's our messaging? What's our brand promise as a company? And then how am I gonna convince the team of this? Right? Because they matter a ton, and I can go out there and do all this work as an individual, or how do I bring the team into it and make them really believe in what the future of Simple Focus is? And agency like Simple Focus is not a bad business to be in. It's not recurring revenue. It's all project-based because UX projects, for the most part, are capitalized, So you find a customer that needs UX in an ongoing manner, and you got a good partner. And that's where we really excel because, you learn the business, right? Like, we work with the University of Phoenix, and University of Phoenix has an ongoing need for UX work. Well, the longer we work with them and the more we know about their business, the more valuable we are, as long as we can stay arm's length and not get so into it that we become one of them, because that's not good either, right? You don't want to get too familiar because then you lose that perspective that agencies bring. So, that's what I'm trying to find and identify. And the good thing about agencies is, man, they can be, feast or famine, but you can really feast on an agency. You can really provide a good living to your team. These are all high paying jobs that I'm creating. It's not like I'm paying $20 an hour. Everybody on the team is, over six figures in compensation at every level. And, they get to, support their families and take care of their needs and splurge when they want to splurge. And it's cool. I like being a part of that with everybody, So that's what I'm working on.
Those two types of businesses are so different in the personnel, needed to run them, right? Like you've got SaaS, which is like minimal personnel, just part-time engineers and support people, I imagine, maybe a little bit of marketing work on it every now and then, but it's like almost nobody permanently staffed on those small SaaSes. And then you've got the agency, which is all people, which, I totally identify with that. It is very fun and rewarding to have real humans benefiting from the money our clients are paying us. It's kind of a cool thing. But it's very different operationally. Like, how do you wrap your head around that operationally? Like, are you somebody who's just really good at picking up what matters in any kind of business, or was it hard to learn the SaaS side of things? Like, how do you think about that?
The SaaS side of things presumes that you need to know the vocabulary to get it. But, I know the vernacular and the jargon, KPIs, CAC, churn. I know how to calculate, ARR when you have monthly and quarterly and annual payments. But when I bought Pulse and I was convincing my banker to help me out with that, I explained it like a normal business. It was like, look, I've got this many customers paying me this much money every month, and I lose a couple of customers and I gain a couple of customers. And it doesn't cost me anything to acquire customers. They just find me through Google or links from blog posts. And I didn't have the vocabulary at the time. Well, you don't need the vocabulary. You need the common sense, right? Because business is just a lot more common sense than people realize, So, yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, to me, I've always, had a knack for using common sense. And I've always had a thirst, a competitive drive for sure, but a thirst for self-determination. Like, I'm gonna make my own way. That's what makes an entrepreneur, I think, because I would be a horrible employee for someone. Like, if you buy my company, you don't want me coming along with it. Like, I would be the worst.
Right. You mentioned a few minutes back about doing some mergers into the agency. Let's talk about that, because I've been curious about this. When we bought a second agency, we kept it very separate, and intentionally they were in different niches. And I think that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is kind of what you alluded to, which is merging in this other company. Like, how has that gone, and what have you learned from that process? What are some of the key things that make a merger work or not work?
It's all culture, That's the short answer. It comes down to the people and how they work together, and sort of once you've gone one direction culture wise, you kind of headed in that direction. Take a lot of energy to change that. So make those decisions carefully in the beginning. Merging is fine. In one case, I'm glad I did it. In one case, I wish I hadn't. So there's no right answer as to what's better. In the scenario where I wished I hadn't merged, I think that the second business would be bebopping right along doing its thing today, and I'd have two rather than one, So I lean towards that diversified, hedged approach in general. I mean, I'm a portfolio guy. Like, if something goes bust, like that Amazon app, I don't want it to kill me, So try not to keep all the eggs in one basket. And for me, that's probably the deciding factor in decisions, is how do I keep the eggs in as many baskets as possible? Since I'm already wired to hop from thing to thing and, kind of run everything as an individual project, that works for me. But I've met people and I've been jealous of people who have one thing. They're like, I just can't imagine how you do different things and split your attention. I have to focus on one thing. And I'm like, first of all, you're very simple-minded. Second of all, God, I wish I could do that. That sounds so nice.
That's right. Yeah. It's like the side of every entrepreneur that, I closet envy those people who just live their life and check out at 5 o'clock every day and just do whatever the hell hobbies they want. I can't turn it off, man. I don't know. And it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like it makes me super ambitious and driven, and I love what I do, but it also means I don't just sit on the couch not thinking about it. It doesn't turn off. I assume you're a similar way.
Yeah, but you reminded me of something I realized early on in my career as an agency owner, maybe even outside of the software side. There were, employees I had, and I had this like low key fear all the time that some employee was going to leave and take a client and start a competing agency because of what they'd learned from me. And some of them might have. But what I learned was that not everybody wants to be you. And I've had some heart-to-hearts with them. And I've said, hey, I'm really, I'm going to be really vulnerable here and say the quiet part out loud, but I'm worried that you're going to leave one day and start a competing firm, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to stay here. And they're like, I do not want your stress, JD. I can't handle that. I would never. Not interested. Hard no, right? You're like, I always want to make websites pretty, like picking out colors and typefaces for a living. Please don't make me talk to a customer and do a spreadsheet, right? Like, okay, all right, what? That reminded me that some people are wired for what we do as entrepreneurs, and they cannot see another way. And just like I could not be happy doing what Casey did for Simple Focus 10 years ago, Casey would not be happy doing what I do. And neither one is more ambitious. Neither one is more or less competitive, right? Neither one is more or less successful, because success is how many nail guns do you have, right? Like,
right.
Actually, Casey is a funny example, because Casey used to measure success for JD in how many pontoon boats I have at the company lake trip.
Yeah.
Actually, at the company lake trip was what it was. So one year we had 2 pontoon boats at the company lake trip, which meant we had hit the big time, because we had a team big enough that we need 2 pontoon boats at our company lake trip. Because remember, I'm a redneck at heart, never change. So pontoon boats are the most redneck boat, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to have pontoon boats.
I think one of the things that strikes me you're good at, JD, compared to a lot of entrepreneurs, is really figuring out where you can best leverage your efforts and time as an entrepreneur working on the business, not in the business. Like, what I mean is, I don't see you as the guy who's in there, doing all the execution work. You're good at getting people to do this stuff, like, and focusing on the big picture. How have you developed that? Or like, was that always natural to you, or was that something you had to figure out over time?
I'm lazy and unreliable. And I acknowledge that. Being lazy and unreliable, you have to delegate to people who are reliable and take pride in a job well done. And I have, if I said it in a nicer way about myself, I'd just say I'm a natural delegator. It's afforded me a lot of free time and freedom. Like, I piddle in my shop in between phone calls, in between work. If I don't feel like doing email right now, I'll sit over there and sand something or whatever, that's fun. And I have that freedom and luxury, because I could be responding to emails, or I could be sanding, and I choose to sand. Now I'll find somebody else to, do the email. But at the same time, I'm not really that lazy. Of course I'm not. I'm super competitive, right? Like, and so I've got to find where I get that energy. And for me, getting that energy is all in realizing that there's money to be made in doing the thing that I like doing the most, which is talking to people, engaging with people. I'm an introvert too. That's the weird thing. But it's not like I'm talking to a crowd. It's not like I'm at a dinner party. I'm talking to you, Karl. Like, that's cool. I like telling stories. I like being myself. I like making jokes at the wrong time, and I like problem solving. My gosh, like, somebody on the agency side, a customer comes to me and says, "Hey, how do we make this thing last for the next 100 years?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a good question. 100 years? I can't even imagine 100 years, right? AI is nothing in 100 years, right? ChatGPT in 100 years? There's no telling. It's probably a military complex by then." That's what I enjoy doing. And I don't really go into it salesy because that makes me feel like a schmuck. I just go into it and I know that, the business side will take care of itself because, I'm deliberate about working with customers that have money. And if I'm doing my thing, helping people out that got money, well, they're going to spend it with me, and that's good. And I get to do what I like. They get something awesome out of it, and, we exchange value. It's great.
I have a similar personality trait around I am not lazy, but I don't like doing the same thing twice. And I have a very low tolerance for tedium. And what I've realized is that, it used to make me think like, oh man, I hate to delegate this task because so-and-so person will have to do this tedious thing. And then I realized some people like doing tedious shit. And they actually are fine with doing repetitive, boring stuff that I don't want to do. And I was like, and they'll take money to just do it or do it for much less than I would, money-wise. And that's my leverage.
And there are people who enjoy doing other things that you don't like that aren't tedious, but maybe suck the life out of your soul. Like, here's a perfect example. So I was so stressed out because this one customer, oh God, he would wear me out. Stressed me out. He was an idiot, and he was a jerk, and he was mean, and he was stupid, and he thought he was the king of the world. And it got to me. This guy, for whatever reason, he got to me, right? A lot of people don't get to me, but man, this one was eating me alive. I was talking to my therapist. I said, man, this guy, he's the worst. I can't stand it. I just think about him all the time. My heart drops when he calls. I wish I didn't have to ever see him again in my life. And she said, is there anybody else on your team that could deal with him for you? I was like, yeah, but I don't want to put them through that. Then my therapist said, he may not bother somebody else the same way he bothers you. Put him with somebody really transactional, like a project manager. I was like, Steven can handle this guy. And I checked in with Steven a couple months later. I was like, so how's it going with what's his face? And he was like, that guy, he's fine. I was like, it doesn't bother you, right? Like,
it's amazing. Yep.
But do you think Steven wants to get in front of a room of executives and stand up there and pitch something that doesn't exist yet? No.
Right. No, not at all.
Pitch something that doesn't exist yet, like you wouldn't believe. I have no problem with it. Steven is, well, I mean, it's going to be complicated. And, because he's a project manager. And I'm like, it's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. It's going to be so easy.
My most dangerous skill as a agency owner is getting on a sales call because I'll sell whatever. And it won't be something we can do yet. And I'll have to go then tell the team, I just sold this new package. I made it up on the fly. Here it is. Good luck, guys. And
yeah, that's me. I'm the worst.
Intentionally I don't do the sales calls anymore for this reason because they would all kill me if I did this every month.
You need to keep doing them because you got to keep pushing that agency forward, Karl. Otherwise, they'll get stuck in their ways and you're going to look up and you're going to be behind the times.
I actually agree with you there. And this is something I'm constantly trying to find the balance of. That I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. It's like jumping in and doing a sales call does teach you a lot, or doing a handful of them every now and then teaches you a ton about where the market's at and where clients are at. Like, how do you, as an agency, grow though? How do you stay connected to that? Is that the only way? You got to jump in there and do one every now and then, or what do you think?
I stay connected to sales on the agency, so that's not a problem. I was going to say that similarly, you need to stay connected to the work if you're going to be good at sales. Because I'll go in there and sell whatever, and it's based on my experience 8 years ago. Well, that's no good, right? Like, I got to be talking about how we're going to use AI, with the team and the client in an all-day kickoff session, and then reviewing the team's work before we show it to the client. Otherwise, I'm just not up to speed on what we're doing, how we're doing it, what I have to sell, how the team actually works. I just make up some shit like an AI hallucination, right? Like, yeah, it's gonna be great. You love it. Process, you know, just say all the right words, but it's got to mean something. And so stay connected to the work, stay connected to the sales. But what you're describing is a lot like what customer success does in software. They're the ones talking to the customer every day, dealing with issues, problems, gripes, complaints, opportunities. Mind that for what goes into your sales pitch so that you're able to anticipate questions before they're asked, you know? And also dog food. Like, you need to hire your own agency, pay them. Like, but since I've got like 11 companies, I can do that. We hire ourselves all the time. And I find soft spots. Like I found some bullshit that needed to get fixed. I was like, you guys suck at that. Like fix it.
Totally. Yeah. It always is a big insight when, here's what I've observed is when things are running smoothly or appear to be running smoothly, I often step back a layer. And then what happens is something falls apart, like a person leaves and I have to step in and, do their role for a bit, or I have to jump in and hire for that role or whatever. And I see all these problems and I'm like, what was I doing stepping back? There's all this stuff that's gotten swept under the rug for 6 months that I wasn't paying attention to. It's hard though. I don't know because there's also the argument that people make that like, hey, look, you have to step back and let other people run stuff. And I know it's like, where do I draw that line?
Well, I would propose that I mean, that's pretty conventional, right? What you're describing. And I would propose it's a little bit more complicated than that in the real world. I think there's two kinds of, I say managers. Like you and me, we're managers, right? There's the kind that can become successful and stay successful. And there's the kind that kind of need things to suck to be good managers, right? And when things get successful, they don't do as well, right? They're better in a crisis. They're better at fixing things than they are at keeping the pedal to the metal when things are going well, right? One of those is going to be rich and the other will be fine, but ain't going to be that rich, And I have multiple times been that second guy, the one that can't stand success and things don't get good again until they fall apart and I get in and I do my thing. Well, I should have learned by now. Keep doing your thing, JD, which is what I'm doing. I'm doing my thing now and I'm loving it. And I'm realizing that's who I am. I am not the guy that needs to, work 1 or 2 days a week and have an army of people that I constantly delegate to. I need to stay competitive. I need to stay fierce. I need to stay nervous, really. That's kind of like we've got a club at Simple Focus called Team Stay Nervous. We got a bunch of anxious creatives, right? And but it's a real philosophy is like if you don't stay nervous, you start taking things for granted and you start letting expenses get out of control a little bit at a time. You stop checking the statement every month to make sure you're not canceling such and so because you're like, it's only a few $100. I mean, a few $100 is a lot of money. I'd rather have that for my, kids' summer camps than for fucking Groove or whatever, We don't even use Groove anymore. We used that last year. We migrated, or whatever. I don't even know if we use Groove or not. I should probably find out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Just staying in touch with those finer details, even when things are good, is important. I agree with you. I've had the same experience of like I step back too quickly sometimes and just ignore the little stuff until it becomes a big fire. And I think there's I often pay the price for that. It's a lesson I'm still learning. I haven't figured out how to do it yet. TBD if I get there. JD, I want to ask you this as we wrap up here because I've got to, we'll keep it on time. But are you a big reader? Yeah, any books that you like or recommend to entrepreneurs often?
I don't read business stuff very much. I'm a reader. I like to read magazines for my hobbies. Those are always fun. And I like to read literature, contemporary literature especially. So I read a book by Mary Oliver recently. I reread Big Fish recently. Those are great. I like that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I've read all the canon of business books. Nothing new there that anybody's going to think is great. Maybe one people haven't heard of from before the apocalypse called Peaceable Kingdom. If you just Google it, it's the one from the ad agency guy, not the other one. But
Okay.
it's about eliminating clicks. He calls them fiefdoms or fiefdoms in your organization. I think that's important. That's a really good lesson.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. JD, this has been great. I love the tour of the wood shop and you sharing some of your journey as well as your insights from it. Where can people find out more about you or follow up if they've got a SaaS to sell you?
I don't want your SaaS in all likelihood, sir or ma'am. But I would love to hear about, an experience design project. Just go to simplefocus.com. You can get in touch with me through that website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to spend more time there. Who knows how long that'll last? Probably not as long as this podcast. Or just email jd@simplefocus.com. It's all good.
Thanks, JD. We'll put those links in the notes here. And thanks for your time. This has been fun.
Yeah, buddy. It's good seeing you.
All right. Talk soon. Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.